So this time I'm going to comment on some street interviews about relationships, marriage, and some of the questions and concerns Japanese women have about international marriage. It's a really interesting video by Asian Boss. I'm going to put the description below. And of course, I'm going to mix it in with my feedback, comments, and insights from my time here living in Japan. It's going to be fun.
国際恋愛してみたいっていうのはあります。めったにないチャンスなんで、チャンスっていうとあれですけど、機会があればぜひっていう感じです。なんかすごいポジティブになれそうだなって思います。外国の方と付き合うと、なんか全部こうプラスに考えてくれるんだろうなっていう印象はあります。すごく。
I think that's a really important point if you want to be the partner of a Japanese person. I do think, especially in the Tokyo area, for many people who work really hard and have a lot of stress in their everyday lives, being with a foreign person who does have kind of like a lighter hearted nature, especially in the beginning of the relationship, is a really important plus. But of course, as the responsibilities of life and family and marriage become more important later on, you need to balance that with a serious approach and be able to kind of guide the Japanese woman through life, even, to make sure that she's not feeling like she's taking care of you, that you kind of have a plan, have a direction that you're taking each other in, and she can feel safe and comfortable. But generally speaking, I think in a hypothetical sense, many Japanese women are curious about dating foreign guys, but the nuts and bolts of like what goes on in a relationship isn't really at the forefront of their mind. It's more of like, oh, that would be kind of nice.
付き合ってみたいなとは海外の方は思うんですけど、なんか結婚とかそういうずっと一緒って考えるとやっぱ日本人の方がいい。
ありがとうございます。ちなみに外国人とお付き合いするのと日本人の方とお付き合いするのって具体的にどんなところが違ってくると思いますか？
なんか海外の方はすごい女性に対して優しいイメージがすごいあるんで、なんかレディーファーストみたいな、もちろん日本の男性もそうなんですけど、なんかそういうのを経験してみたいなっていうのがある。
Yeah, I hear the ladies first kind of thing quite a bit, right? Like, and I think if you're dating and stuff like that, you don't have to be like chivalrous or anything like that, but I think just some of the natural ways that, we take care of women in the West, for example, opening doors for her, asking if she's okay, asking if she wants things, is something that many Japanese women aren't really used to, and who've never dated foreign guys. So that could be seen as quite a bit of a plus if you are in the dating market, you're starting to be around. I mean, you don't have to be Ronnie Romance and show up with like roses and throw like, chocolates at her feet or anything like that. But if you are just like a generally nice person with manners and a positive personality and a kind heart, that will be in your favor quite a bit, especially for someone who might not have as much, confidence or know how to deal with you. And that, kindness can help bridge the language gap in the initial phases of the relationship.
一回休みの日に連絡が来て、で今日会えるかどうか聞かれたんですけど、その時私はあんまり外に出たくなくて人と会いたくなかったので、今日は家にいるねって言ったんですよ。でそれは私は今日は会いたくないっていうのを伝えようと思って今日は家にいるねって伝えたんですけど、その日サプライズで家のドアの前で待ってたことがあって、ちょっとそれはなんかミスコミュニケーションがあったなって思ったことはあります。
Yeah, scheduling and respecting the space of Japanese women is so important. It's not like, hey, let me change you and make you a more happy, positive person, especially in the Tokyo area. Like, that's not a thing. Women, think about Japanese women as kind of like cats. When they want to be around you, they want to be around you. When they need their space, give them their space. Also, planning ahead is really important. In this clip, she talked about the guy just messaging her that day saying, hey, let's hang out. In the West, that might be okay, but in Japan, that's a big no-no. People really schedule things quite a bit in advance, and you're going to need to respect that. I recommend at least 3 weeks in advance making plans, because she has other friends, families, obligations, events, things like that she might need to go to. Or just like in this situation, she just might not want to deal with anybody. She just might need some time to herself to reset. It's not anything about you. It's not her giving you the cold shoulder. Sometimes you just gotta let her do her own thing, and when she's ready, come back to you. Some guys might not like that. Some people might not want to handle it, but that's just the way it is here, at least in the Tokyo area.
最近周りの方が国際結婚してでそこの母の友達の娘さんが国際結婚してフランスの方と結婚されてで初めて日本に来てご挨拶ってなった時になんかこうあまりにグイグイ来るから疲れちゃってなんか帰ってっていう言葉を言っちゃったっていう話を聞いてそうやっぱりなんかこう表現の違い嬉しいって時にあんまりこうちょっと違うのかなと思ったりとかあとなんかちゃんと結構結婚ってなると日本ってかしこまってご挨拶ってあると思うんですけどなんかそういうのはちょっとお互いの壁に日本人のご両親にとってもまだ知らないっていうかあんまり触れてこなかった文化だからお互いにちょっとそこは壁になっちゃったのかなっていうのは
Yeah, this situation is really easy for me to imagine. I'm not saying like all French people are like that, but I can imagine that guy, you know, was thinking, "Oh, this is my mom. Hey, mom," and really, you know, being kind of touchy-feely, hugging and things like that. The mom might have been a traditional mom and never really like hugged anyone like that ever. Not like she's a cold person, but that's really not how she expresses herself. And especially in the beginning, you know, there is that distance between people. It's not a distance of like being cold, it's a distance of mutual respect and feeling each other out and establishing like a mutual level of communication where it doesn't need to be spoken or said overtly, or especially not touchy feely. You know, he might have been hugging her all over the place, rubbing her back, or things like that, which made her really uncomfortable. Not like, you know, he's coming on to her, but just that's not a form of communication that she was really used to. And so he was trying his best to show that he was being affectionate, but in his way. And many times where we're foreign people coming to Japan, we need to bridge the gap, or dealing with our Japanese counterparts, we need to be the ones to bridge the gap, in my opinion. Like, not saying like Japanese people need to be lazy, because many times Japanese women do try to bridge the gap, but they do it in a way that is very Japanese. And you have to understand that this society, since it's an inherently closed society, they might not know how to bridge the gap in a way that foreign people are comfortable with. They might try their best to bridge the gap, but they're doing it in a very Japanese way, in the way that they perceive foreign people might be comfortable with or might be able to pick up on, but their base is Japanese culture. So that can cause some friction and gaps and things like that. So for me, it's always best to just be as cautious and not cautious in the sense of like, you know, apprehensive, but cautious in the sense of, you know, giving space, giving distance, being friendly, putting that peaceful kind of atmosphere, but not making too many sudden movements, not getting too touchy-feely, you know, not being too loud, just being humbling yourself, as she said, and knowing that you're in territory outside of your comfort zone, and then you'll be fine. But, you know, approaching things in the way that you think is best many times leads to gaps in communication and comfort level.
海外案内してくれそう母国案内してくれそう
もしヤイラさんが外国の人と結婚するってなった場合ご両親どんな反応すると思います？
めっちゃ驚くと思う
ポジティブな
ポジティブにいや多分心配の方ですかそっちで行けるのみたいな感じ
具体的にどんなところ心配されそうですか？
海外で暮らせるとか話せるのとかやっぱりそっちですかね
I think this answer is a great example of the way many Japanese women think about international relationships, right? If you look in the beginning, she was like, "Oh, it'll be fun, you know. He could show me around foreign places. It'll be great." But when I actually thought about the practical aspect of marriage or a serious relationship with a foreign person, she automatically was pulled back to, "Oh, what about my parents? What about this? What about worries and problems and things like that? Me living abroad." She, you know. Many times when you're talking with Japanese women, if you introduce an idea, oh, that'll be great. But when you actually think through the process and the practical steps of it, then it becomes, oh, what about this? What about that? I'm not saying Japanese women are all negative or things like that, but you have to understand that if you're in a relationship or talking to someone, if you give ideas or proposals or life decisions in the beginning stages, it sounds like, yay, let's do it. But sometimes, like when it is put into practical action, the reality and the weight of those things actually start to hit home. And then it becomes more of a issue for her. And you can also imagine that if she's not able to express her apprehensions or how her mind has changed or her worries, that even compacts the pressure, compacts the stress. So it is kind of something that you need to consider, especially if you're dealing with someone where there is a language gap, or if you're, talking about taking someone back to your home country or something like that. She might sound like all about it and enthusiastic about living wherever, but when you get down to it, or when, it becomes like a real situation, then, not only her herself, but influence from parents, friends, family, doubts, questions, fears, apprehensions come into play. And those are things that you're not going to be able to put at ease, because you can't talk to her parents and let them know everything's going to be all right unless you've actually spent lots of time with them, really communicated with them deeply. They might smile and say it sounds good, but the deep communication doesn't happen in at that level. It happens more behind the scenes, not behind your back, but just behind the scenes, in a way that more than likely you're not going to be able to pick up on or participate in. So it can get kind of tricky.
外国人の男性の方に対して、もし日本人と付き合うのであれば、こういったところは事前に知っておいた方がいいよみたいなことあれば、なんか教えていただけたりしますか？
日本の女性は基本的に結婚を考えて付き合っていることが多いような印象があるので、パッと遊んでパッと変えてみたいなのだと怒るよっていう日本の人怒るかもよみたいな感じですね。
In the West, we kind of think about, relationships like in a casual way, and we'll kind of see how they progress. But in Japan, it's not really like that at all, especially with women who are over 26. So they're really starting to think about where their relationships are going to lead in the end. And you have to kind of factor that in when you're talking to someone. They might not express that to you overtly and say, oh, it's totally fine. We're cool. We're just chilling, seeing what happens. But from day one, they're envisioning themselves and their lives with you and simulating how it plays out. They're not like trying to game you or anything like that, but that's just naturally how things go. So you don't have to think like that automatically, but I recommend you just be aware of that reality, even if it's not spoken or said to you, that the clock is kind of ticking from day one, especially someone who's over 26, 100% for someone who's 30 and over.
結婚に関する価値観がまず違うと思ってて、私が前付き合ってた人の国では結婚するっていうことがマストでは男女の関係の中で必ずしも必要なものではなくて、どちらかというと日本の友達とかは誰かと付き合うとその先の結婚とかを考える人が多いので、そこの違いがまず難しいのかなと思います。
Of course, this isn't a blanket statement, but generally speaking, every Japanese woman wants to get married, right? Like some people, depending on their stage in life in the West, might think, marriage is not for them. Maybe they've been divorced at some point, or they're at the stage in their life where they think, if they just find someone that they care about, that's not really necessary. But here, like anyone that a woman is seriously in a relationship with, she wants marriage just for the stability, the safety, the reliability. Remember, having a stable life in Japan is a huge, huge, huge thing, especially for women. Not dying alone is a huge motivating factor for women, even if kids are off the table. So you're going to have to deal with a woman wanting marriage at some point in her life. And even if, you're just hanging out or whatever, saying that you don't want to be married is going to be a red flag for a lot of Japanese women, overtly. I mean, depending on how long you guys have been dating, of course, it's naturally going to come up. But in the early stages of a relationship, or for example, if you're still in your 20s dating, I don't recommend you just say that you never want to be married or something like that. Leave the door open, leave the possibility open, and realistically, you never know what might happen. You might find that this person is a really solid life partner for you. And if you are in a serious relationship and you've been together several years, I will recommend that you kind of need to think about it seriously and basically either at some point shit or get off the pot. Basically, you're going to have to make a decision because she's not, generally speaking, not going to stick around uh, for life just to hang out and be cool with you, and knowing that you can kind of hop on a plane and leave anytime you want to if you guys have a fight or some type of disagreement. Having some type of stability, having some type of reliability, having someone there where you can kind of fall back on despite what they say through actions is a really, really important for a lot of Japanese women.